Good morning. First of all, I have to apologize for the delay of this public hearing. I'm also handling transportation, and as chairman, I attended the board meeting at CPA. They have a 9 o'clock meeting with Recondo and Associates, and the good news is that they're discussing the airport fees, looking at ways to see how we can adjust the airport fees so that we can have more reasonable airline rates. And so the meeting is still ongoing. And fortunately, the Senate president was there also and still there attending the meeting. So I had to run up here and uh, safely. And so thank you again for your indulgence and understanding for this 10, 15 minutes delay. We're here this morning to hear comments on Senate Bill number 2329 SD1 to replace the Commonwealth Utilities Corporation with two independent autonomous public corporations to separately manage and control the power service and water service systems, create one elected consolidated board for the two public corporations and for other purposes. Um, in the committee's last meeting, we had an extensive discussion, and for witnesses that wish to have a copy of Senate Draft 1, the result of that prior meeting, I believe copies are available, but we would hear comments based on also the original bill as was introduced. So, but before we begin, um, I would like to re- um, have a roll call first. So, um, Devin, please.
Senator Selena R. Babauta,
Presente.
Senator Francisco Q. Cruz, Senator Jude U. Hofschneider, Senator Karina L. Magofnia,
Here.
Senator Donald M. Manglonia, Senator Paul A. Manglonia.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, 4 members are present, 2 members are absent.
Okay, Senator Jude and Senator Dono are both excused for today's hearing. So we have the necessary quorum with 4 members present. Um, I see that we are waiting for CUC witnesses, and so can we just take a very short recess to find out? I reckon the chair recognizes
Point
Senator
of order.
Corina.
In order to officiate today's public hearing, can we adopt the agenda at least for
Thank you for
Um,
pointing that out, Senator
pursuant to
Corina.
parliamentary procedures?
So can I get a motion for the adoption?
So
Uh,
moved.
It has been moved and seconded to adopt today's agenda. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. So the I just want to point out the other portion of our hearing this morning would be on Public Utility Commission. And so since we see that the chairman is here, if there is no objection, well, we're waiting for CUC. Maybe we should entertain Public Utility Commission matters first. But before we do that, let me just call for a short recess so I can clarify. But maybe that's a good way to proceed with this. If they're going to take their time coming here, but we have informed them, and they should be here. But uh, short recess. Let us resume with our public hearing. And if there's no objection, I would like to go down to public comments at this point. So any member of the public in the gallery wish to make comments is welcome at this time.
Buenos dias, Mr. Chairman, Senator Paul, ni membro ni Stina Komite. Inano si Ramon Blas Camacho, igual paugi akadi, sti municipality sa Ipan. Mr. Chairman and member of this committee, my comments on this Senate Bill 23-29 to separate the utility and the water division. My own opinion and that I'm opposing this bill is one is the cinema situation. We're still on the economy recovery, financial constraint, in other words, and creating a agency or department. It's very costly. Through my intel, the water division is being subsidized by utility now. And if we separate these two, where the water section is going to be generating that money, of course, it's going to impact each resident here because they need the funding to run their division or department. And right now, I think that this bill is not that feasible. I think it's not the structural problem. Most likely it falls under a management. And if you have a structure right now, the utility and the water division, you have one executive director to oversee us. So create two managers. And the two managers, one manages the utility, the other manages the water division. And have these two managers report to the executive director with one board and commission in this corporation. So again, I think for this time, I think this one is not really feasible. People are suffering. As you all can see that there's a lot of imposed taxes. And out there in the community, that's all the word of mouth on the picnic table. So it's a big impact. And just to share with you, crime is increasing. Because individuals out there is trying to survive and not meeting their needs. So they're looking ways to meet their needs by committing crime. I just sent my letter to the governor in reference, how can we make use of our resources here in the island, which is the land and the water? How can the government assist the people here in the island by tapping to these two major resources that we have? On the land, I think we should, look into the land and give the local people to farm $1 per acres per year. I think that's what really that we need to focus on, because there's no other driving force to drive the economy. Tourists are not really pumping in. Casinos dead duck. So I think if we all get together and let's be creative and let's create a local industry to drive the economy. The local industry, the product from the ocean and the product from the land. But for this bill, Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, I think it's not feasible at this moment because it's going to cause a major impact. It's a matter of management skill to run that show. With this, thank you so much.
Sizu Sumalsi, Mayor, thank you for your comments. At this point, since there's no other providing comments, I would like to ask for members' understanding if we can just move down to new business on Public Utility Commission, as we have the chairman here with us today, Attorney Jim Syrak. Attorney, please come forward. I believe all members have a copy of the fuel adjustment charge overview provided by PUC. And so we'll just begin by recognizing the chairman for any comments. Thank you. Mr. Chairman. You're welcome to provide comments on the bill, and then after that we'll just proceed to PUC matters.
Am I hot now? Okay. Thank you. I don't have any particular comments. I did poll the other commissioners. Just as a general statement, they're not in favor of the bill at the present time, simply because they feel that it would cause multiplicity in cost, and which would then be passed on to the ratepayers. That's it. So as the commission, we don't have any formal position we're taking on that. We'll have to wait and see, having put something in front of our consultants when we're able to hire some consultants to look at this and give us an opinion. But right now, there's nothing in front of the commission other than the bill itself to ask comments on. But at some point in time, the commission's going to have to review something that comes in from PUC as a result of this bill, if it passes. I would prefer not to take a position on it until we get something from CUC, which would be down the road, assuming that the bill passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I should say passes and becomes law. Passes the Senate, goes to the legislature, and then becomes law. Goes to the House. I'm here to answer any other questions that you or committee members may have concerning the Public Utility Commission.
Before moving on, I just want to ask, since you're chairman of PUC, if you can try to at least comment with the way at least the Guam law is functioning today. We would appreciate your opinion, because they also have a PUC board there under this kind of mechanism system.
Yeah.
So it would be beneficial for this body to hear comments from PUC in the near future,
Okay.
as to how it's working here in the CNMI, and how it may not work or may work better with this setup as in Guam. So if you have time, we appreciate. Think it will benefit the committee tremendously in finalizing the legislation. Thank you.
I can do that. And let me supplement my prior answer by saying this, that as Jim Syrak, a private citizen, having experience within the utility sector, and especially with CUC, I'm familiar with various rate issues that CUC has. And one of those is the fact that the water rates itself, and the fact that the power division of CUC at the present time really subsidizes the water expenses. And it has been doing that for a long time. There hasn't been a rate modification of our water rates for more than 10 years. There was a petition that was submitted to the commission, Utility Commission, in 2013. It would have increased the water rates, but that was withdrawn. And a petition has never been presented to the Public Utility Commission since that time. So it's been more than 10 years. Now, if we go through your bill, and this is just a thought off the top of my head when I first saw this, is that if you separate the power division and the water division, now you have to have the water division standing on its own. which means that if it is not recovering revenue now to cover its actual cost, when it is separated, and you're going to have to do that because it's no longer going to be able to be subsidized by the power company, because they're going to be two separate companies, that means that the water rates are going to go up, obviously. And the other thing that is going to happen, as the Senate knows, there's a bill in front of the Senate that the Senate's considering that from the legislature that would remove the government rate for all utilities, for all government agencies. And so there would only be a residential rate and a commercial rate. There's not much difference between the power rate and the water rates. I mean, between the power rates on the commercial versus the government side, but on the water rates, there's a large difference. So when you take away that government rate, which is subsidizing technically the water side, assuming that payments are made, we know that there's a large government debt to CUC, both on the government and especially the hospital, CHCC. When you take away that revenue and you require a new water company to start paying for its actual cost of service, those rates are going to have to go up exponentially. The other thing is that when you have a separate water company, right now you have a water electric charge incorporated in the water rates, because there's electricity that's used to pump that water through the water lines from the water tanks into the homes of the customers, the homes of the residents and the businesses of the commercials and the government offices. So now when you have that, that means that that water company is going to have to bill CUC, the power side is going to have to bill the water company, a separate company, for the cost of that power as well, which means that right now before the commission, there's a petition to eliminate the water electric charge, and it would be taken off the water bill and it would go over and be blended in with all the power charges on the power for all the power customers. So now you got to keep that water electric charge back in there, and that water electric charge is going to go up as well. So having said all this, I guess what I'm trying to say in real easy terms is that I think what would happen would be, at least on the water side, you would see large increases in water rates coming out of that water company if it was separated.
So, assuming that this bill were to become law, it would be necessary to have a transition provision, I guess. Because one thing I want to make clear is that there's still that one board, same board, operating the two. So maybe what if the committee were to put this out, maybe a transition period there where this subsidized mechanism is slowly clarified, so that ultimately then we can work out a smooth transition and eventually separate the two under one board. But let me ask you, on the election aspect of this bill, though, what's your feeling as far as voting for the members of the Commonwealth Utility Corporation? Because that's the main key here also, in addition to dividing it up, separating the two. It's the election of the board of the directors.
Well, I think that's the other thing. The bill itself doesn't put into it any particular qualifications for elected board members. And obviously you would want some board members on there that have some basic utility knowledge, or knowledge about utilities and running utilities, how it operates and so forth.
Okay, I'm sorry. I think that the SD1, we did address that. We
Okay.
put, if I'm not mistaken, attorney, we put at least an AA degree in there.
I saw the AA degree, but I didn't say anything that dealt with actual utility experience. Maybe I missed it. I apologize.
Okay. I guess the amendment that we have just for the viewing public is that the candidate must possess an associate's degree and 5 years of managerial experience,
Okay.
or a bachelor's degree if you don't have 5 years of managerial experience.
Utilities is a little different than operating a general company. I mean, it's a little more technical in nature, but I have no opposition in my personal mind, and we haven't discussed this within the commission as to whether or not we favor elected positions. I don't see any opposition. I think that works. It works with the public school system, their board. It's worked with other boards as well. So, but I do think that there should be some minimal type of utility experience needed for members to sit on that, either utilities on the power side, power experience, power utilities, or water side, because there's a little bit of some technical knowledge that needs to be acquired or known by individuals that are making management decisions within those fields.
Okay, well, we'll note that, but balancing it with an elected board,
Yeah,
I guess it's the public that will ultimately decide whether
that's true.
you'll be a good board for the utility. But we'll note that.
I think a good analogy, a little bit of analogy, is for judges, for example. I mean, people have to have a degree, but you can't just say, "I want you to have a BA degree," or something like that. They have to have a JD degree, which is a degree that deals with legal issues specifically to become a judge. There are some states that allow judges, non-attorney judges.
So let me
be
just
elected,
ask you: Do
but
you
I think
think
that's an analogy. Is you wouldn't want to put someone on the bench that doesn't have at least some basic knowledge of the laws of the CNMI or the legal system in general.
so? You think the problem with CUC board of directors is the non-technical? I mean, is the technical experience, or is it mainly political, or?
I have no I have no basis to make a conclusion as to what if there's a problem or not a problem with the CUC board of directors. I know that when I was with CUC, there were directors on that board that had utility experience and knowledge, and I think we operated quite good. In fact, I don't think that CUC was in the situation it is in now at that time when I left, which was I left them in 2019. I was there from 2013 to 2019. And I know that we made tremendous strides in reducing the debt of CUC and recovering its cost. The other thing I wanted to mention on the water side too, that causes this is that right now, 60% of the water being produced in the CNMI is lost. And of course, you use electricity to operate those wells as pumping that as well. So that's another expense. So it's some of that revenue, or if there was a way to reduce that water loss number, it might be able to result in the water company recovering its actual cost of service, if you understand what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Because the actual cost of service includes producing the 100% of water that is producing and technically getting paid for that. And right now, if you're losing 60% of the water, you're not recovering costs for 60% of the water you're producing. That's a huge loss.
Big loss. Any member wish to ask questions on this, on the comments by the chairman with regards to this bill before we move on? Okay. So, Sarge, can we get a copy later on to the chairman on Senate Draft 1 so that he can have a copy of that and distribute to his members?
I've got it.
SD
I
one.
just got one this
Okay.
morning.
All right. Thank you. Senator Selena.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question, Mr. Cyrock. You mentioned that the Power Division has been subsidizing the water services at CUC for many, many years, and it appears to be that way for the past 10 years because of non-adjustment of water rates or something like that. I'm deeply concerned because CUC has reported that only 37% these statistics are a few years behind, by the way. So it may have increased or decreased over the past 2 or 3 years, but it's not that outdated, I would say. It's within the last 5 years at least. The fact that CUC has reported that only 37% of drinking water produced, pumped, and chlorinated is being billed to customers and generating revenue. And they lose approximately 200 million gallons per day due to water theft, faulty meters, leaks. I mean, if CUC Power has been subsidizing water for the last 10 years, what is, and I'm sorry, this question may not be appropriate for you as PUC. We will wait for CC. What about all this information that really needs to be fixed before we can even start looking at whether we need to adjust water rates? And because certainly this is not the fault of ratepayers or well, it may be the theft rate, water theft, but I would like to see them report to the legislature what are they doing about this 200 million gallons of lost water that they could be generating revenue from on a daily basis. 200, oh, I'm sorry, monthly. 200 million gallons per month is being lost out there to water theft, faulty meters. So that's my concern for CUC, I guess. I do agree with your comments that an AA degree plus 5 years managerial experience is inadequate for a utility agency. And additionally, we lower our standards to only require an AA degree with experience. And I feel that that is why we have the government we have today. There are many people who are not educated enough to run a utility company, especially a utility company with all the technical requirements, language, jargon. So those are my two comments in relation to yours. But I guess we will wait for CUC and ask them about this water loss that, they need to address, really.
Senator, that number is accurate as of today. I was at the CUC Board of Directors meeting in October, where that number, I specifically talked to their water director, and he was also together with the chairman of the CUC board and the executive director were at our commission meeting that we had in October, at the end of October. And we asked a lot of questions, we being the total commissioners asked questions. And they, at that time, also confirmed that the water loss rate was at 60%. So they're only recovering 40%. So I know that number is accurate as of today. And that was one of the questions I asked. I said, look, when I was there in 2016, based on petitions and findings that were submitted to the commission at that time, the water loss rate was 60%. And we're still at 60% now. What has CUC done? And that was a question I asked CUC. And it wasn't fully explained. They indicated that they're You've got issues of water theft. You've got issues of leakage. You've got issues of, which is old piping and so forth. And they're trying to deal with all of that, but they simply haven't been able to bring that number down. But they do expect to do that in the near future. Some of it also is also based on the inability to actually measure the amount of water that's coming from the well and going up into the water tanks, the storage tanks before it's being pumped out to the customers. So they're working on trying to put some meters in that would measure the actual output. They think that the output calculation is not correct as well. So there were several factors that they identified, but there really wasn't an explanation as to why that number has stayed stagnant for the last 8 years or so.
Thank you for your comments. I mean, my reaction to that information is what a mess we are in. And I think it's unfair that I, as a private citizen, companies who utilize and get water from CUC are also paying for this water loss. And when we get CUC in here, we will ask them what have they done in the last 8 to 10 years, because they can't continue this way. Bottom line, it's not fair to anybody who resides in the CNMI. This is so unfair for us, for the companies, for the government to have to pay for their inefficiencies, I would say. Thank you, Mr. Cyrock.
Your position is shared by the commissioners on the Public Utility Commission. I would tell you that all of us are concerned about that. That's a priority for us. And that's why we asked those hard questions to CUC and brought them in specifically, invited them in so we could ask those kinds of questions of them. But that's a concern of the Public Utility Commission as well.
One last comment, Mr. Chairman. I also wonder if, the municipalities, Tinian and Rhoda, I think Tinian has a separate agreement, right? Or with their power. I wonder if they're also subsidizing for Saipan's problems.
Well, let me say this.
Because
Saipan
it's
is
one
subsidizing the islands of Tinian and Rhoda.
I'm sorry?
Saipan ratepayers are subsidizing the actual cost of service for Tinian and Rhoda, both on power and water. So it's one island isn't subsidizing the other island.
Senator Cruz wants to respond. Senator Cruz?
I'm sorry, but I kind of disagree with that, Chairman. Can you explain how Saipan subsidizing Tinian? Because to my understanding, we've been charged the same rate, and we're especially when embed in sewer charges. Tinian don't have any sewer, but we're paying the same.
The power rates, the cost of producing power on Tinian and the cost of producing power on Rhoda is substantially higher than the if you calculated the actual cost, the rate that would go out on a separate basis would be substantially higher than what it is now. The cost of the producing a kilowatt hour of power on Tinian and a kilowatt hour of power on Rhoda with their engines and the efficiencies and so forth are all blended into an actual cost, and that's why the rates are the same across the board. Otherwise, you would have different rates. And actually, different rates could be charged by CUC. It would have to go to the commission first. But right now, the rates are there because all of those cost of service on Saipan, cost of service on Tinian, cost of service on Rhoda has been blended in to one major cost of service. And that cost of service is then put into the rate model. And that rate goes across the board to everyone.
I just want to point out, though,
there may
that
be some
for
differences in the water side. I
yeah.
agree with you on that, and the sewer side. But again, the power side is subsidizing water altogether. So I don't have the actual numbers as to what the actual cost of service for water and sewer is on Rhoda or Tinian, but I know that when you put the actual cost of utility service, total water, power, and sewer together, and you build that out separately to the residents of Tinian or the residents of Rhoda, Rhoda would be the highest, Tinian would be second highest, and Saipan would be the lowest. But right now they've split it, they blended it all together so that everybody's paying the same rate, whether you live on Rhoda, Saipan, or Tinian.
Any member? Senator Karina?
Thank you, Chairman, and good morning to you, Jim. Welcome again. Thank you for being here, and thank you for providing us with the PowerPoint to give us an overview of the fuel adjustment charge, also known as FAC. For quick clarification on your first bullet point, you have here fuel is the largest single expense item for CUC. Fiscal year 2022 fuel costs could reach 70 million. Is that still the case? Because we are now in fiscal year 2024. So do you happen to know what the actual fuel cost was for CUC?
I do not. That's within CUC's preview, and I haven't gotten that information from CUC.
I will
Um,
reserve that then to ask CUC when they get here.
I just know that a reconciliation hasn't taken place on the fuel adjustment charge since 2015, which was considered in a docket on 2016. At that time, the consultants for the commission indicated that CUC had been overpaid by its customers on the fuel adjustment charge, but the consultants for CUC had indicated that CUC had been underpaid. And the reasons for the difference is because the consultants for the commission used an accounting system that was on not a cash basis, but an accrual basis. In other words, they said CUC billed out X amount of dollars. That's the number we're going to use as to what it technically received. And it didn't consider the bad debt side of it. And so when you deal that and you bill it out as that billing, there was an overbilling, basically. But the consultants for CUC found that the actual cash received based on bills that were paid resulted in an underpayment of that fuel adjustment charge. In other words, CUC didn't recover as much money as it should have to pay for the fuel for that last 6-month period. So the other issue that's pending before the Public Utility Commission now is also a petition to decrease that 6-month period to a 1-month period, so that they wouldn't be projecting out the fuel costs for 1 year. I mean, for a whole 6 months, they would just be doing on a month-to-month basis, and that would eliminate this going up and down so much on the 4.5% deviation. Because as you can see in the PowerPoint program, that fuel adjustment charge is based on when you do a 6-month reconciliation, the consultants and the economists that work for CUC try to come up with project ahead for 6 months and try to come up with what it's going to cost on an average every month for fuel, what that fuel cost is going to be. And they keep that static for that 6-month period, so that if the actual cost of fuel either deviates from that by 4.5% above or below that number, then the fuel adjustment charge would be deviated as well. So if the cost of fuel is 4.5% more than what that average that they calculated would be, the fuel adjustment charge would increase. If it's below it, it would decrease. And that's why you're seeing over the years and through several months, an increase or a decrease in the announcement from CUC on the fuel adjustment charge. So the consultants for CUC had indicated we can get away from that by having a 1-month reconciliation period versus a 6-month. When this was discussed, I had met with the CUC board of directors, as I indicated, at the end of October. And when this was discussed with them, Simon Sanchez, who obviously has his experience with the Guam Power Authority, indicated that their fuel adjustment charge is a 6-month reconciliation basis, and they haven't had very many deviations, and their deviation is only 2%. It's not 4.5%. So he suggested that, as far as he's concerned, they may look at that petition that's still currently pending in front of the PUC and pull it back, because they may now want to still continue with a 6-month reconciliation period versus a 1-month reconciliation period. I don't know what they're going to do. That's up to CUC at the time. But that fuel adjustment charge now also has in it several, as you can see by reading the PowerPoint, has several elements that's used to come up with this average fuel adjustment charge. I call it the base fuel adjustment charge. And that includes bad debt. And that bad debt is really bad debt in the sense of fuel adjustment charge that hasn't been paid. So when a power bill goes out to the government or to the hospital, for example, that includes a fuel adjustment charge in there. So when that fuel adjustment charge hasn't been paid, aside from the normal power side of it itself, that means that the fuel isn't being paid for. So when you do that next reconciliation of that base fuel adjustment charge, you have to calculate in so much money that's not going to be collected to pay for that fuel over the next 6 months. And everybody does that in a financial statement. You consider a bad debt ratio. So in a way, when those bills aren't paid, because of the fact that that fuel adjustment charge within those bills is not paid, it affects what the next fuel adjustment charge is going to be, assuming you do a 6-month reconciliation. But a reconciliation has been performed on this since 2015.
So just a point of clarification. So now are you now factoring that out, non-payment by CUC in your fuel adjustment charges?
The Public Utility Commission doesn't handle fuel adjustment charge. That's all CUC. They have to come, and they're supposed to do a reconciliation. There is a reconciliation that's pending now. So we're hoping, the commission is hoping to have a docket at the end of January, 1st of February, where we will deal with these pending issues, which will include a reconciliation. And I've informed CUC twice now, once at their board of directors meeting, when they came to the commission meeting, that we will be looking at this, and we expect them to either continue with their current reconciliation and deal with it, or come up with some modification of it. But we're going to deal with that fuel adjustment charge, because we are as concerned as the members of the legislature, both the Senate and the House, and the consumers, that this fuel adjustment charge needs to be looked at. It's an issue that's, I would call it the elephant in the room. And so we are concerned about that, and we've indicated that concern to CUC.
But before we move on, I just want to recognize Chairman Audon, Congressman in the back. And if there's no objection, I want to call him up. He's the chairman for the transition committee, and he's continuously working. So if you're welcome to join Chairman Syrak up here, Congressman. We appreciate any information the committee can gather. Now, I think Senator Corina still have the floor, and then
If I may, Senator Paul, before we start, I would like to indicate that the commission has had a meeting every month since July. So July, August, September, October, we'll have another meeting here on Saturday. At all of our meetings, Representative Don has been at our meetings. So he provides comments. We have discussions with him. He was there when we had CUC discussions with CUC in October, and he presented some comments as well. So he's fully integrated with.
So all the members, I know you have invited me, but all the other members are welcome to Zoom in also, right? So
Sure.
I can share the link.
Sure.
Appreciate. So thank you for sharing that Zoom, and I'll forward it to them.
But Mr. Representative Aldana has been a part of our process all along, and we welcome that, as well as any you or your committee members to participate in our meetings.
So, Heather?
Thank you, Chair. So, Mr. Syrak, just to reiterate, the consultants from PUC, right, have come and said that after doing the reconciliation, that CUC has actually overbilled its customers.
Not overbilled, they've overcollected.
Or overcollected.
Which is a difference.
Overcollected, right. And according to CUC's consultants, they under collected. I think it's important to clarify. I would have to agree with PUC's consultants because what you bill out is what you generate in revenues. What CUC's consultants is failing to, I guess, incorporate in the reconciliation is the disputed bills.
Mhm.
And for those who don't know the inner workings of CUC's billing, what happens when a customer files a dispute on their bill, that bill is essentially like frozen. Okay. And so nothing is collected on that bill until the dispute is resolved, and then the collection process begins. Naturally, when CEC consultants reconciled the over and under collections of CUC, they didn't factor in the disputed amounts that have been sitting on the books, right? When I was there, I know that CUC had over millions of dollars in uncollected revenue yet because they were being disputed. So naturally, if they're going to claim that CUC wasn't collecting as much as what they were generating in revenues, is because a big chunk of that is also sitting in the
Mhm.
disputes bucket, which doesn't show up in the reconciliation
Mhm.
because it's still being resolved.
Mhm.
So to say that CUC undercollected is an understatement. I think it's an unfair statement to say that, because had the reconciliations been done properly and the disputed bills were done promptly and timely, right, then they would have a better picture of what the true uncollectible amounts are. There's bills that have been sitting in the disputes for many years, almost reaching the statute of limitation, right? And that's also one of the failures of CUC, is the inability to resolve those issues and collect on those accounts, because those are huge sums of money. These are not, just a drop in the bucket. Some of them are six figures. I think you are aware of some of
Mhm.
that, right? Because you also help in the hearing process of those disputed accounts. So I want our public, I want the viewing public to know that, there is also a lot of work that CUC has to do on their part. It's almost self-inflicting, if you would,
Mhm.
right, to CUC, because there are some areas that they are not as proactive or maybe not as aggressive in resolving a lot of those issues. A lot of it is also the uncollected bills.
Mhm.
I know we factor in the allowance for bad debt in fact, and to some degree, I would have to agree with Senator Babauta that it's so unfair to those who are paying their bills on time. And a lot of them, I would have to say, would be the residential and commercials, because commercials need to pay their bills in order to
Mhm.
stay in business, right? And then people, we need electricity, especially for those who have medical needs and have medical equipment at home that need the electric service. So I think we need to put a little bit more pressure on CUC management to address a lot of the self-inflicting issues that they are experiencing at this time, because a lot of those could be resolved, honestly,
Mhm.
if management would just put their heads together and really have a plan of action and a timeline of when those issues can be resolved. Aside from that, I think while we're waiting for CUC to come in, Chair, if it's okay with you, for those who don't really understand the FAC background, or the elements that are embedded on the building, maybe Mr. Syra can explain a little bit, so that
Okay.
for those who are listening in, to have a better understanding of why FAC is on the bill, and what are those elements and why they are there. If that's okay
Okay.
with you, Chair, is that okay?
Chair,
Yes, if the other members have no objection, but before he does that, can I just follow up with that?
These are the
elements. These are the different elements that are factored in the
Or put penalties so that when you recompute that, I totally agree.
Yeah.
You shouldn't penalize the honest payers, right? Because they're the ones when you reconcile it, they don't have to pay additional because the others are not paying. So
Yeah.
is there
Okay,
anything-
I would thank you. I would like to respond. I have two responses to the Senator McGoffin's argument, and I think it's well taken. Quite frankly, I think your points are well taken. You have a good questions on that. One of the issues that was raised by CUC and its consultants when it dealt with the opinion that a cash basis should be used versus a accounts receivable basis. I'm using that as probably not the official auditing term, but is because if you use an accounts receivable basis, as the consultants for the commission did, and come to say, okay, there's been an overpayment because there was a billing out of more than what the actual fuel costs were. What happens then is that if there's an over billing, then there's a credit that's given to the CUC customers. It could be, a half of a penny or whatever. I don't know. It depends on how much that overpayment is, but it's a definite credit that's given to those customers. Now, if you do that on a cash received basis, then those customers that haven't paid their bill get a credit on their bills. And then if they come back and pay their bill later on, they've been rewarded for not paying their bill. And CUC has collected basically a double payment. So that's why they being the consultants for CUC, preferred to deal with this issue on a cash basis, because it actually deals with the amount of money that CUC actually got. And you don't have to worry about some customers who had disputes and then got a credit during that dispute process because of the failure, because of an overpayment, then come back and pay their bill. And then they got the benefit of that. They got a credit that they should never have gotten. Secondly, on the large debt, this is an issue that concerns the commission as well. We brought this to the attention of CUC. The commission has received inquiries from individuals as to what it is doing to try to get this debt reduced. And quite frankly, at this point in time, there's not much the commission can do, because the commission can't go out and require a debtor to CUC to make a payment. I don't think we have the ability to do that. It's not within our jurisdiction to do that. CUC has to do that. What we can do is we can somehow bring CUC and try to say something. But, there used to be a judge on the Superior Court bench, Judge Hefner. And, I did a lot of collections. As people know, I and Mike White were the largest collection attorneys on the island. And we would bring people in constantly and try to get people to pay debts that they owed based on promissory notes or whatever, bad checks and so forth. And Judge Hefner would say quite frequently, you can't squeeze blood out of a turnip. So when you have debts that are owed by the government or the hospital, and you look at the funding they have, which I haven't done, or how they've managed their funding, which I haven't done, the issue is, when there's no money in the till to pay that debt, how can you force that individual to pay that debt? That's something that CUC has to work out with its debtors. But as far as the Utility Commission, just a straight line, what can it do? It can't force that debtor to make a payment when there's no money to pay it, especially. But just as an overall general rule, we don't have jurisdiction to bring someone in on a subpoena and make them pay. We only regulate entities that are utility, telecommunications, cable TV. We regulate the entities that produce the services that they bill out, and we don't regulate the debtors that pay for those services.
Just one last comment, Chairman. And I think it's also important to note, right, that there's one of the elements on FAC is the allowance for doubtful accounts, the bad debt expense. And essentially, they are billing us in advance for those who are not paying their bills on time. However, CUC also has a collection department, which also attempts to collect on accounts that have outstanding balances on it. So essentially, it's almost like they're getting double paid, right? Because they're already billing us for these a bad debt, right? Allowance for
Mhm.
bad debt, and then turning around and also trying to still collect, right, on those um, uh, delinquent accounts. So the appearance is that CUC is getting two payments from the customers. I know CUC is going to come in here and try to probably argue and say, well, yeah, but I mean, if you look at it, it's so minimal. The point is, right? Just because it's so minimal, it doesn't make it right. Okay. The fact of the matter is, you're still double collecting from your customers, and I think that's wrong. I think that should be removed from the one of the elements of fact, and just make the effort to make the collections on those deficient accounts. It almost gives them the cushion to not be as proactive and aggressive in collecting those accounts, because they are relying on this one element on fact to subsidize their inability to collect on those accounts. So I think it's just important that we put that out there and that the people know, and I don't know who, whether it's PUC or the other board, that can make the changes to the elements on fact, but I would definitely would like to recommend that particular element be removed, so that I don't care if it's a penny or 2 pennies, it's still pennies that the customers could use elsewhere. It's not their right, or it's not up to them to dictate how you spend your pennies. So I just want to put that out there, Jim, and I hope that that's something that, I'm not sure if it's your commission or the other board, could, just relieve our ratepayers, even if it's a penny.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you, and I yield, Chair.
Mr. Chair, I agree, and I noted this down, and we will do that. CUC comes to us with the numbers for the fuel adjustment charge of what they're going to do during the reconciliation process. And then we look at it, we being the commission will look at that and either agree or not agree and have some discussion. So there is an opportunity for us to say, okay, is this number correct, or should we even use this? And so I put my notes in there, and we'll deal with that with our consultants. I would say that based on my knowledge and information, that allowance for doubtful accounts is not based on what they expect is going to happen in the future, but what has happened in the past. In other words, this is the number that of bad debt that CUC has. And so we have to factor that number in there, which includes non-payment of fuel. We have to factor that number in. So it's not a forecast of how much they're going to get paid in the future, as much as it is a look back at what they didn't get paid in the past.
But it's still a double payment,
Yes,
because
yeah.
if a delinquent customer finally pays his bill, we've already paid portions or subsidized that delinquent account.
Yes. Chairman, the question was asked of me, which I haven't been able to respond to yet, of what are the elements of the fuel adjustment charge? You can see that in there, but it's I have a sheet here, and I'm sorry I didn't make copies for everybody.
You can make copies.
Okay.
You can make one and then you can-
This is a worksheet from April 2016 that went to the commission to do the reconciliation. That page.
Just make
We
one
get it
copy
back.
and then I'll make this copy. One copy, but it's-
Just that page. Just that one page.
Chair, if I may, while they're making copies, just another suggestion, Mr. Sarak. I mean, please require CUC to have a dedicated person working on the reconciliation of these of the facts, so that they are not waiting until the end of the year or whenever they get to it. It's so important that that they know where they stand, so that they can properly credit the accounts for all the overpayments that they have collected. You know,
Okay.
there's no reason why they cannot have a dedicated person reconciling this account, this particular account, on a monthly basis.
Hmm.
Right? I mean, I understand there's over 13,000 accounts, perhaps. I don't know if that's still the number now, but there's really no reason why it should take, a corporation a whole year or more to do the reconciliations. I just don't understand the lack of understanding and priority for CUC not to reconcile their accounts, especially when it comes to numbers. Numbers dictate, it's so important and key in order for upper management, to make key decisions, right? Sound decisions. Because how can they make proper decisions if you don't have the numbers in front of you? So I don't know why they're not making that a priority, but it really needs to be at the forefront of everything, that they make decisions on. So if you would please bring that
Okay.
up to CUC, and just have a dedicated person to work on reconciliations, beef up their staffing on disputed matters, because those are monies sitting on the side waiting to be collected. CUC complains that they don't have money. It's because they have over millions of dollars sitting in a bucket that are yet to be resolved and collected on. So that's one of the issues that they really, really need to prioritize. So I know you're on the PUC board, but if you get a chance, please, and I
Okay.
will bring it up when they
Okay.
come in, if they come in, that is definitely something, an area of priority that they need to start really focusing on.
I agree with you, Senator. If I may, Chairman, can I have a response to that? I agree with you. And, the order to reconcile every 6 months and provide that reconciliation to the commission on a 6-month basis is technically still outstanding. Even though there hasn't been a quorum for the commission for the last 8 years, the commission technically has still been in existence. And even when there wasn't a quorum, CUC was notified that its filings, like its fuel adjustment charge filings monthly, goes to the governor's office. So there was nothing. There's nothing in the law and nothing that the commission did before it lost its quorum to indicate to CUC that it didn't have to make its filings anymore, which would include its 6-month reconciliations, not only for the fuel adjustment charge, but there's net metering reconciliations as well that have to be dealt with. And so I agree with you. I think that there's some argument that can be made that why haven't you done any reconciliations every 6 months? Even though there isn't a commission with a quorum to act on it, you still should make those filings and do a reconciliation. So
It's standard business practice to reconcile your books on
Yeah.
a monthly basis. You don't even have to wait 6 months to a year. I was very shocked to find out when I first started CUC that when I first started, that their financial statements were generated on an annual basis. Like, who does a business that way? For a corporation that generates over $100 million in revenues, and you don't have your financial statements until the end of the fiscal year, it's no wonder why they were in the red for so many years. And it wasn't until we pushed really hard. I mean, I had a lot of pushbacks from accounting because they said it couldn't be done. And I was like, there is no way that we could not generate a monthly financial statement. There's just no way. If these Fortune 500 companies are generating their financial statements on a monthly basis within a 3-day period, there is no reason why CUC can't do it. And lo and behold, we were able to do it. Yes, it took sometimes, we started with 15 days, but we managed to bring it down to like 10 days, at least when I was still there. I don't know how it is right now, but the fact that they were able to see that they could generate and prepare a financial statement on a monthly basis was a huge accomplishment for me, at
Mhm.
least. Because how do you expect your managers to know where they stand financially and the kind of decisions that they could make and the contracts that they bind themselves into if you don't even know where you stand financially? It's just mind-boggling to find out that CUC was operating in such a way where they didn't even know where they stood financially. So I'm glad that that's all worked out now, and CUC is in a better position right now to understand where they stand financially, at least, somewhat. I don't know. I'm hearing all these reconciliations are not being done on a timely manner, but I sure hope that they prioritize that, because that is one of the biggest failures of any business. If you don't even know where you yourself don't even know where you stand financially, you're just going to continue to spend outside of your means, and this is where they would get in trouble. But honestly, they need to work on their receivables. They need to work on their disputed accounts so that they can start collecting those monies. Similarly with our government, we keep saying that we don't have any money. Well, I got a report from Revenue and Taxation only to find out that there's over $13 million, at least at the time, that's uncollected revenues. Those are monies that could be in our, coffers right now to assist our government in providing those services, right? But if we're not proactive and aggressive in our collections, then it's a recipe for a disaster. So we really need to just beef up our enforcement. Same thing with CUC on their collection efforts. That's one of the key elements to any business succeeding and staying in business.
Chair, I just want to point out that the executive director will be here at 1:30. So we'll proceed and then take a recess. And if the members are okay, she'll be here with her staff. And I also asked that some water officials be here in addition to the financial. So we'll proceed. But before we do that, I'd like to recognize Senator Corina.
Oh,
Selena.
I just wanted to recommend that we take a lunch break until later on. I don't know of Mr. Cyroc's schedule. I don't know if he'll be able to come back this afternoon. If not, we were able to obtain a lot of information coming from PUC's side. And I want to thank you for your volunteer work, actually, because this is a thankless job that you're doing. But we really do appreciate it. One of the questions I had was CC uses the MOPS, right? The mean of Platts for Singapore. And I'm wondering, I don't understand about it, but I'm just wondering if that is still feasible or appropriate to continue using MOPS versus S&P Global versus any other mean out there. And if we could use another mean of Platts, would it drop, our rates that we're paying? Just yesterday, a constituent sent me a copy of their CUC bill, and customer charge, which is the monthly service fee of $7. Electric usage was $189. Fuel adjustment charge was $543.90. For a total electric bill of $740. That's not including water. Water service fee per month is $10.86 for everybody. Water usage based on this customer's usage was $21.45, but their water electric charge was $52.40 for a total utility power and water bill of $824 for one household with just a couple, no children, husband and wife. And this is really shocking. And we've been this way for many, many years now. So my question to you, is it appropriate to continue using MOPS, the mean of Platts for Singapore, versus any other mean out there?
I can't give you a definitive answer to that. I will say this. In the last 3 months, I can't remember exactly when, but it's been within the last 3 months. I have had a discussion with the consultants, former consultants for CUC, obviously because I worked with them for 6 years, so I know them well. So because this question came up during the confirmation hearings, and I think your president of the Senate had that concern as well. And so I immediately went back and I talked to the consultants and I said, what is this deal? Do we have to use MOPS? Is there something else that we can use? And they initially told me that that is really within our area, the pricing, that's what mobile uses for pricing and so forth, that's probably the most practical clearinghouse value to use. But I don't have, I have to wait till we get some consultants on our side and I actually say, give me an official opinion on this because I've got questions about it. I promise you that I will do that once we get some consultants on board. And that will be one of the issues that I'm going to discuss and the commission is going to discuss with the commission. But so that's all I can say on that for right now. You do have in front of you this page, which is a page from the fuel adjustment worksheet for April 2016. April 2016 was the last time the commission met on a docket. And this was part of the reconciliation process that was going to be used to come up with a new fuel charge. And you can see that there's about 6 different elements that are used to come up with what I'm still going to use this term base fuel adjustment charge. And if you have any questions about that, but that lays out what all is incorporated within that fuel adjustment charge. And people have always asked, how is it developed? What's the formula for it? How do they come up with that? And all I can say again is that every 6 months, CUC is supposed to do a reconciliation where they look at that. They put these numbers in after consulting with their economist consultants on what the appropriate number should be. These elements within the fuel adjustment charge are elements that were approved by the Public Utility Commission, as far as my understanding is, so that going back to Senator McGoffina's question, can we take out one of those elements? I think that there probably can be discussion on that within the commission and between the commission and CUC of whether that's practical. But these are the elements that are currently by order to be within the fuel adjustment charge. And once those numbers are put together and then submitted to the commission during a reconciliation docket, then the commission and its consultants looks at it and makes a determination whether that rate is fair and reasonable based on their knowledge and their information and their review. And then it moves on for the next 6 months. But we haven't done this since 2016.
Mr. Chairman, if I may. We had CHCC in here because they have a serious account issue with CUC, and they've disputed, I believe they've disputed their bill, but they're still, I think, current with their arrears. But it makes me wonder, based on what we heard from you today, with the bad debt included in or doubtful account, allowance for doubtful account included in the FAC rate, FAC, it makes me wonder whether their arrears actually could go down based on this double payment of billing customers, including CHCC, if it is included in the government rate as well, the FAC.
Yes.
So everything that a residential ratepayer pays for is also incorporated into the billing for government and commercial ratepayers. Is that
yes,
correct?
the FAC charge is
Standard
standard across the board for all rate.
So in essence, CUC is paying twice for their debt, basically, because they're being charged a certain amount for for their delinquencies, but when they do pay their bill, their current bill, which already incorporates a FAC rate, they're also paying for their own bad debt.
Well,
is-
I don't know, because my understanding from this 2016, when I was involved in this, and having talked with the consultants in the last 3 months, my understanding was that this bad debt issue is based on a cash received basis, not on an account
I
basis.
see.
And that's where, when they came into 2016, all of a sudden they were hit with Georgetown. Georgetown was the consulting firm for the commission at that time. Georgetown then came up with the idea that no, we should be using this account receivable basis to determine whether CUC has been over collected or under collected on the fuel adjustment charge. So I don't know. I really don't know the answer to that, and that's something that CUC should be able to tell you, but I don't have that information in front of me now.
Last question: does PUC have anything, any involvement in the resale of utilities?
Yes,
They
We-
do.
we have to approve any. You're talking like a
Oh.
power purchase agreement type
No,
of a situation.
like a tenant landlord situation where the landlord resells to the tenant, which is illegal, resells the utilities at a higher rate. Does PUC have any involvement in those kinds of disputes?
I think we do. I think we do have the ability to deal with that particular issue. CUC does as well.
Yes.
I will say
I would
this, that
imagine.
there may be, if you have a company that's producing power through solar generation, for example,
Mhm.
and it's basically standalone, and then it charges its tenants
Mhm.
a power rate, then that becomes an independent power producer technically, and PUC definitely has
Okay.
authority over that and the rates that they're
regulate.
charging, and they can't get away from that authority by simply saying, "Oh, well, we're charging the same fuel adjustment, the same rate as the fuel adjustment rate, or excuse me, the same rate as CUC charges
'Cause
for
they
their
don't pay for
tenants."
fuel, and it's-
But because they're independently determining what rate they're going to charge, it's not being regulated by the utility commission. So that's an issue that's outstanding as well, because I think there's at least one entity like that in the CNMI that's doing that, that has tenants, but has a large solar generation facility, and so it's actually getting credit on its net metering. So it's charging its customers a rate, an independent rate. They're not getting billed by CUC. They're
Mhm.
charging its customers an independent rate. Its tenants, I should say, an independent rate that they decide is the appropriate rate.
What about if a company is not an independent power producer? They're hooked up to the CUC
Yeah.
grid, and they're overcharging their tenants. Illegal resale of utilities. Does PUC have any involvement in that?
I think we do, in the sense that we have a provision in our enabling statute that allows the Public Utility Commission to hear disputes from customers, utility customers. And if they could complain to CUC that they're being overcharged a rate because their landlord is only paying a certain rate to CUC, but then the landlord is charging them a higher rate, that's certainly something that I think the PUC could deal with. But I think it's also comes squarely within the ambit of PUC's or CUC's powers to deal with that as well. And there's provisions in their enabling statute that allows them to deal with that issue.
I just want to state for the record, there is a company out there. I will not name it at this point, at this time, but they're charging 49 cents per kilowatt. Is what I'm seeing here. Water, they're charging $15 service fee per month versus CUC's $10.86. So those are some of the things we're hearing from our constituents. Complaints we hear from them on a regular basis. So that's why I pose that.
We haven't. I apologize for interrupting you. The utility commission hasn't heard any of those complaints, either through a member of the legislature or from the citizenry out there, businesses. But certainly, if we have some complaint that comes in like that, I'd be glad to look at it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, before
Mayor
we,
Tama.
thank you, Senator. Before we proceed, just give courtesy recognition to Congressman. You have any concern to raise at this point?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you, Chairman.
So we have been, in constant communication with the commissioners, and we do understand that there's a lot of issues that, Senator Karina Magofna has brought out. And, that's one of the questions that I've always asked the board, are the customers getting charged for delinquent payments of other customers? And when anybody that does any business, you will always just factor in the losses, and non-collected customers are that losses. Somebody has to pay for that, and that's where we believe that, CUC should be accounting for that on a separate sheet. Because, if you're charging a customer, somebody else is billing, you're carrying them. And then when it comes to the point where the delinquent customers does pay, then what happens to that overpayment that the, first customer paid for? The other concern is that, when CUC overcharges, its customers, sometimes to the tune of $100, $200, $300, the customer doesn't have any choice but to pay it. So they do, because they don't want to go through the hassle of taking it to the board and, arguing their billing. So they pay it. And when they do realize that it's already, that they did overcharge, the customer requests for that funds back. And CUC refuses to fund that money back to that, household, or to that business, because they want that money back, because so that they can spend it on somewhere else. If they're current in their bill, they don't want to have that credit. They need their funds back. So, but I'm not sure why CUC is refusing to do all of that. And one of the things that we're trying to get, that I'm trying to wrap my head around, and this is, a little bit off topic, but it does affect the fact rate, is that when Public Law 1587 was passed, it literally gave, a residential the ability to go 100% renewable should they choose to. But for whatever reason, CUC refuses to give customers, residential, 100% that ability. They limit them to 20 to 30%. There's nothing in the law that prevents residential from doing that. And as a matter of fact, Public Law 1587 encourages the community or any business to create their own power using renewable energy, so that hopefully it reduces the fact rate, which also reduces the power that CUC have to produce, which at the end of the day, it would save them on their operating costs and their maintenance costs. But then again, they, in the law mandated CUC to conduct a grid study to ensure that when anybody wants to go renewable, that it would not overwhelm the grid. As it stands right now, CNMI itself has the capacity, the grid capacity, to carry over 80 megawatts of power. That's the current state of the grid. But CUC is only producing between 30 to maybe 35 to 39 megawatts. So why can't CUC not, allow, residential and businesses to install and produce their own power, because it will not overwhelm the grid? So for whatever reason, management and whatnot is preventing businesses and residential from doing what the law is asking them to do. At the end of the day, it will reduce their, your bills. And at the end of the day, it will reduce the operating and maintenance costs of CUC. So, and with that being said, it will reduce the price. The economics and the numbers doesn't lie. 1 + 1 is 2. If you're not using something, you're not going to spend money on maintenance and operation because it's just sitting there, not doing anything. So, and all of that is going to affect the bottom line, for the ratepayers too. How much are they going to pay? So I'm trying my very best, as part of the House on PUTC and working with, the commissioners to help CUC produce power at practically almost no cost to CUC. So if you have an independent, if a home is able to produce 100% of its power and then transfers excess power to the grid, that's one less kilowatt that the CUC has to produce. Oh, thank you.
Could it be that because they'll have less revenue to subsidize water? I don't know. Senator Karina?
Thank you, Chair. So, I'm glad that you are bringing all those up, Rep, because I would like to kind of piggyback on your point. Now, I forgot which public law it was, but I believe CUC or the hotels are mandated to hook onto CUC grid. To your knowledge, as of today, do you know if all the hotels on Saipan are hooked onto CUC's grid? And if not, why?
I don't have that information. I think when I left CUC, there may have been one or two that were not on the grid.
Okay.
But I don't have that current information.
Would you know if, let's say, if all of these hotels hooked onto CUC's grid, would this have an impact on potentially lowering the rates? Because now CUC, has these hotels, they're generating revenues from these hotels. Would that have a financial impact on CUC's ability to reduce the rate?
Again, logically it sounds like it will, but I think that the study needs to be done because I think you have to balance that additional revenue against the continued loss of revenue for non-payment. And so at the end of the day, I don't know how that balances out because I haven't seen a study on that. But I
Maybe
think
that's
that's
something
an
just
issue.
to look into when you
Yeah.
have your meetings with the board. And I will, now that I remember, I will definitely ask CUC because that is a public law. And if they have not, it's, I believe it's a pretty old law, like maybe years now. There's no reason why CUC hasn't been able to promulgate those regulations and get them up to par, right? And get these hotels to hook onto the grid. I mean, this is lost revenue for CUC. So I don't see why they're not being, proactive about it and trying to get these hotels to hook onto CUC's grid. I could say one thing, maybe it's because their generators are, never mind. I'll just keep that comment to myself. But also, I wanted to ask, in your professional opinion, Mr. Syrak, is what CUC doing by incorporating that allowance for what was the doubtful accounts? Is that legal, knowing that they also have a collections department that attempt to collect on these delinquent accounts? Is that a legal practice, or is what CUC doing legal to embed that allowance for doubtful accounts in their billing as a form of collection?
I from my information, I think it is because I think it's part of the normal financial statement process. I mean, if you do a financial statement of a company or business that's doing, they always look at doubtful accounts and they have to factor that into their cost of doing business and the prices that they put out to their customers. So I think just
But
off the
that-
top
but
of my
that's
head.
captured on the financial statements, not necessarily embedding it into their billing. You know, because it's another mechanism to collect money, right? Without the people really knowing that they're paying for something that they like.
Yeah.
I take offense to that because I pay my bills on time, you know, and for someone to be collecting for potential future, you know, delinquency on my account, I think it's unfair to me,
Mhm.
you know. So it begs the question whether or not that practice is legal, and if it's
Mhm.
not, is it criminal? Because that's definitely something that we need to ensure that our people are protected. And if it is something that it's illegal, then we really, really need to take a close look on the way CUC is billing our customers. And I would even go further that if it is indeed considered an illegal practice, then I demand that our customers, our ratepayers, are reimbursed and refunded all of those monies that they have spent for years paying for something that they shouldn't have paid, you know, even to the point where customers are being disconnected because of this ridiculous amount that we are paying for a utility service. As Senator Serena just pointed out on one of the bills of her constituent, it's ridiculous to know that their usage was only $100 something plus dollars, and the fact was over $500. You know, it's just not right. We can't do that to our people, and we need to fix it, right? So it's just something that I would definitely ask, say CUC when they come in. But you know, I just thought I'd throw it out there and ask you if you would know or consider it to be an illegal practice. Thank you.
I put it down on my notes, so it's something I'll be looking into as far as the commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you again. And so with that, I think we'll go on a lunch break and come back at 1:30, the time that the executive director with her staff will be here as we continue the hearing. Caesar's Masi. So recess until 1:30.